Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an NPC bodybuilder. Today's guest is Nate Spear. Nate, welcome back to the podcast, my man.
Thanks for having me on. Getting ready for a big weekend here. So, yeah, it's exciting and it's fun to share with you guys sort of what's going on and sort of behind the scenes a little bit, So I appreciate having me on.
For sure, man. I appreciate you taking a little bit of time to chop it up with me. For those of you who maybe this is your first time listening to the podcast, or maybe you've been listening for a while, if you want to catch Nate's story, this is actually the second time Nate's been on the podcast. So I'm not for sure what episode number it is. It's kind of one of the maybe top 10 or 15. So go back, listen to Nate's story. But this is going to be a little bit different episode. I just wanted to bring Nate on. He's very kind and gracious to give us a little bit of time just to talk about this prep, talk about this weekend as he fights for his IFBB Pro card. So again, if this is your first time, go back, listen to Nate's story. We're just going to chop it up a little bit about nationals this weekend. So Nate, let's just talk about this prep a little bit before we get into this weekend. Compared to other preps, how has this prep been in your mind?
Yeah, it's definitely been a lot different. So I tend to document my preps like pretty thoroughly, I would say. I mean, like once I start getting in like pretty good shape, I'll post a lot and sort of let everyone know what's going on. And so those that don't know, last year I did the same show, NPC Nationals, super heavyweight class, and I got third. So that means I missed the pro card by one placing. At Nationals, top two in each class for bodybuilding get qualify for IFBB Pro status. So that was sort of kicking the ass, I guess you'd say, almost motivational. Some people it might be hard for them, but I mean, when you're that close, it's almost like shit, man. Like I better get to work and really want to seal the deal this next time. So those that don't know, like I said, my competition history. So last year, 2020, I did North Americans and Nationals, got third at both. And then the previous year I did, in 2019, North Americans and Nationals. So this year going in was a little different because we didn't do the North Americans, right? So North Americans is in September, it's Labor Day weekend. So that's a weird stretch, so it's not for the faint of heart, I would say, because you're doing North Americans, and I didn't plan on doing Nationals as well, but when you place, one or two placings from winning, it sort of motivates you to keep going. So that's sort of what happened those previous years was, at North Americans, the first time I got second, I'm like, okay, I better keep going to Nationals, right? Unfortunately, I didn't get it, but I got third down there in 2019. But essentially is what I'm saying is, usually North Americans is in September, and then there's a 12-week stretch that would occur until Nationals, so that's sort of hard because you're already in shape. Most guys, if they do more than one show, it's not a 12-week stretch, but unfortunately in the States for pro qualifiers, it's sort of laid out that way. USA's is like, I think 8 weeks between North Americans, and then North Americans is 12 weeks between Nationals. So that's sort of how it worked out. But sort of what I'm getting at is, so after last year, we put all our eggs in the basket of Nationals, whereas the previous years we had the North American. So the time we had more time to play with as far as improvements. And like I was saying, if people have, check out my Instagram at Nate Spear. I have some good side-by-side transformations of last year to this year. Really think I brought some improvements on my legs, sort of always my weaker link, I would say. I brought those up. They look a lot better, and my shape is better. My arms are better. So it was really exciting because also this year Nationals in December, where previously it's always been the week before Thanksgiving. So that gives you an extra month. So, it's all the time I could ask for as far as making an improvement and without sitting out a whole year. So it really worked out in my benefit, so I got off stage at last year at Nationals, and got right to work, what I'm saying? I got up to my heaviest, I ended up hitting 280. The previous year I was like 267, 270. It was like a good looking weight too. So really, drilled on those improvements. And then, yeah, so we started getting to work for prep about 16 weeks out. And yeah, I mean, every prep is a little bit different, I would say. So, for me, this prep was definitely a lot different. Generally speaking, I'm known for my conditioning, but generally speaking, I get in shape pretty early. So like last year, I always compare pictures. I mean, it's probably not always like the best strategy because sometimes you can get in your head. But I'm sure most competitors can relate to this. You compare your last year's pictures to this year's pictures and so on and so forth and going back and forth. And, last year my glutes were straight at 3 weeks out, whereas this year, at 3 weeks out, they're just sort of getting the boxed shape. And I was sort of not panicking, but it was definitely like unknown territory for me because I was like, usually I'd be in really good shape by now and I'm not. But in my opinion, I think that might have been a benefit this year because it helped me hold on to my fullness more. So, a couple of key things we took home from last year was, I really wanted to, I know I can get in really good conditioning. So it was a matter of keeping a full round look while, nailing that same conditioning, which is huge, especially as you get to the national level and you're going against, genetic freaks that are round, have crazy shape. So, fullness matters at that level. So, a big thing was, keeping those legs nice and full and round, because it's really hard. Like if you get into the type of conditioning I get into, to not sort of flatten out or, sort of lose sort of weaker body parts as you're getting there. So that was definitely a main concern this time. And then this year too was different because, so previous years I worked as a restaurant general manager. That's what I did pretty much most of my adult life, as a career. This year I ended up sort of opting out and going a different direction. And I've been training on people online, doing in-person personal training. So like that whole mix. So that's really been helpful as far as, giving it my all into a prep, not, working 10, 12-hour days, sometimes 6 days a week, on my feet. I think that helps stress the body out. So we definitely noticed a more fresher look. And I think the fullness, I can attribute to that. My cardio got higher than normal because my daily output wasn't the same, but I found I was able to push the cardio harder without, getting that flat look because my body wasn't under the stress of, standing on my feet all day, at work and whatever. So for those that want to know, we got the cardio was up to about 50 minutes fasted in the morning. And then we got up to 30 minutes post-workout cardio on the stairs. And then carbs, so like I was saying, that last 3 weeks, we were a little like not worried, but the conditioning wasn't quite where we were up to that standard that we were used to, so we really, this was probably like, I wouldn't say the most suffering, but the hardest the diet and the cardio had been. The carbs got down to like 100 grams of carbs, pre and post workout. So that's pretty low for me. And just energy was like really shot at like 3-4 weeks out. And it's hard you got to learn to manage that because before where I was working, it was like you're forced to, move and do stuff. So it's not as bad. Like, yeah, you don't want to do it, but like when you have the option to sort of sit on the couch, like you sort of take that option and it's not necessarily always, I mean, it's good to rest, but at the same time, it's also like, you're sort of like not doing much. So there's a lot of mental aspect there too. Right.
100%, Nate. So I want to talk about your mindset then this year a little bit. So I don't know if you kind of have like a place that you like to keep your mind in terms of maybe like a quote or a mantra or a word or, just something like that. Where has your mindset been? Where do you allow your mind to focus, during this off season and going into nationals this year?
Well, it's hard because I guess I have two different mindsets. When the off season is a little different than the prep, but I would say definitely the off season, my mindset is I know I can win, It's just the matter of, making those small improvements like I was talking about. Because when I look at my physique at previous years when I placed runner up, it's like I got the physique. I just need to sort of some fine tuning, right? So that was just motivational in itself, being so close to, turning pro already. I feel like a lot of people believe in me that I can do it. So, and for me, bodybuilding, the thing that motivates me the most is transforming my physique, making improvements. So that's sort of like I always live by when I go into the gym, is like, man, I just want to be a better bodybuilder. I just want to make improvements. Like, I never want to be that guy that's like, oh, well, he looks the same as he did last year. You know what I mean? I want to be continuously improving. And then like for me, like, in prep, my mindset, it was always, I'm not saying that I will be, but I always want to be the most conditioned guy in the show, because I just like love conditioning. And I think it's going to edge you out, even if you're not a genetic freak. So, there's guys that are going to beat other guys because their conditioning is so, excellent that, other guys are going to slack. You'll see it this weekend. I guarantee you. I can already think of some people that there might be some big upsets because, the conditioning is not going to be there. And at this level show, people see the pictures on Instagram, see the freaky wow. Oh man, this guy is impressive as hell. He's got to win the whole show. Well, I'll tell you one thing, pay attention this weekend, and I bet you something might not happen that a lot of people think is going to happen. You know what I'm saying? And the reason is because people aren't going to bring the proper conditioning. They're going to get on stage and they're going to get exposed by people that were working their ass off. Not me in general, but I'm just saying like other people too in other classes, because I see it happen over and over again. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting and it'll be a lot of fun to watch, but yeah, for me, it's always conditioning. It's sort of like my mindset in prep. Like when I'm doing, like, there's times in prep, and a lot of people should be able to relate to this, where I'm sitting on the couch and in my head, I got to go to the bathroom, and I'm going back and forth in my head and saying, just go to the fucking bathroom. You know what I mean? Like, and you're not doing it because you're just like, oh, I'll just gotta wait. Like, because you're just so drained, or I gotta take the dogs out, and it ends up taking 20 minutes, whereas opposed you just get up, like your normal energy, normal every day, you just get right up, take dogs out. No big deal. You don't even think about it. Now it's like you're sitting on the couch, like going back and forth, like fighting in your head, like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to move. Like, your feet are 1,000 pounds, your body aches, your calves from all the cardio are like tight as fuck. Your hamstrings are super tight. And like, this is a good note for everyone. That's the stuff I think about before I get on stage. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all worked so freaking hard, to get to this point. And there's times in 4 weeks out, 3 weeks out where you want to quit. You don't want to do it. Why the fuck am I doing this? You know what I mean? And that's when you're about to line up backstage and you're pumping, and you put that shit right in your mind, because that's what you worked for. You know what I mean? And enjoy that moment, because now the work is done. Like, that's the time to have fun. I think a lot of people, they get on stage and they forget about that, and then all of a sudden it's over. And like, so I guess it's like living in the moment, but like, man, yeah, it's weird. I'm not emotional, but I guess definitely like, it's like eye-opening, because just the feelings of like that you feel like when you're suffering that much. And now it's like even right now, I'm just having an aha moment, because I'm thinking back to those, 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out, like, man, I felt like dog shit. You know what I mean? Like, and now I'm like, oh shit, it's here. I did the work. I know I'm ready. Like, that's a good feeling. You know what I mean? So yeah.
So cool, man. So talk to me a little bit about your coach, Andrew Barry, who's also been a guest on the podcast previously. I got to think, Nate, and, I hear other athletes talking about this, but I got to think the longer you're with a coach, generally speaking, it's only going to bode well or better for you as an athlete, right? I mean, because the coach knows you better, the coach better. Don't you think that just plays into a better opportunity for you when you step on stage, or do you have some other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree there. I mean, me and Andrew have been together since 2015. We did our first show in 2016. We've done, I think, 10, 11 shows together. And it's just like, at this point, it's like routine, like we just sort of, I usually know what he's going to do. Like, it was funny the other day, I had a friend, I got friends asking me like, how's prep going? This and that. A couple of close bodybuilder guys that like, they sort of want to know the ins and outs. And, I'm like, okay, like, he's like, oh, what are you eating today? And I was like, well, I said, probably knowing Andrew would be like 300 grams of carbs, but I'm waiting on the response. And then like 5 minutes later, he's like 320 grams of carbs. And I was like, you know what I mean? So it was one of those things. I think it works good because me and Andrew have a similar mindset. Like, we're very like simple approach. We have a trusting relationship. So when he says, hey, Nate, today eat 300 grams of carbs, he knows I'm going to eat like, space it out 50 to 60 grams of carbs from like, rice or whatever, oats or, potato. I'm not going to, I'm not going to eat 300 grams of carbs in one sitting. Like, he doesn't have to say like, okay, like this is how you got to do it. You know what I mean? Like, so at this point, I think our relationship is just, it's a lot of ebb and flow, and Andrew's taught me a lot as far as like, so I started coaching people and stuff like that. And I always, any questions I can come to him with them and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, as far as we've grown a lot too. So, well, especially me, like as a competitor, because like when I first started, doing this, especially the national level shows, it was a little bit more intimidating. My mind wasn't quite as strong. Not that I was weak, but you just have like these thoughts of like, like negative thoughts. And, Andrew would sort of have to like help combat that, or, talk me into like positive vibes. And now it's like, he's taught me, he's pretty much said things to me that have like stuck with me that, now I'm in a position to be more confident, not like stress as much. Because like I was saying earlier, it's easy to get caught up on the Instagram and like, oh man, this one guy that every single person's talking about, why am I even going to do the show? Or, last year I did the show with Nick Walker, you know what I mean? Like, so stuff like that, but yeah, as far as like, me and Andrew's relationship is awesome. Like, luckily, I mean, it worked out good enough where we're like really close friends now. I actually consider him my best friend. And luckily, I think I have enough respect, wisdom, maturity, not to take advantage of that, and we have a good separation from, coaching and then friendship, like, because we'll message each other like friend stuff, and then I'll email and check them in with my bodybuilding stuff, and it's separate, you know what I mean? Like, and I never like, because I hear some stories, people get too close with their coaches and stuff like that, and it's like that conflict of interest thing gets built, and like almost like they don't listen as much, you know what I mean? But I'm not that guy, I guess. I don't know. And I respect Andrew enough, and I still look at him as such a smart, bright guy that it's easy to trust him, I guess. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I think it's hard because I think a lot of guys, bodybuilding can be so, what do you call it? Just like, I don't know, like trendy, whatever, like, James Hollingshead is with this coach and he won a show, so now everyone's gonna go use that coach, whatever. It's like, I don't know. And then everyone's got the same freaking like coach at the moment, you know what I mean? And it's like, which is, I mean, I'm not saying the coaches are bad, but I think some of the athletes are just looking for some kind of, oh man, what's this guy doing to get his guys in shape? You know what I mean? And I think that, looking for, I don't know if like secrets are the right word, but they're looking for like a new way, or, and it's generally speaking, it's not always the case, but most of the guys that are, sort of in that position are doing it like year after year, you know what I mean? And sort of like, oh, well, now so-and-so's with this coach, and now so-and-so's with this coach, you know what I mean? So, and, those are the guys that are usually inconsistent. And, I'm not as genetically blessed as some of these pros. Obviously, I'm not a pro yet, but my conditioning and consistency, I think a lot of people notice. And I think that's a big, aid with Andrew, and myself. And like, it's funny because sometimes I have thought about like, oh man, maybe I could prep myself. And it's no like disrespect to Andrew. It just would be like a fun experience. And I know I can get in condition, but sometimes it'll be funny because I'll be like, oh man, I'm like almost in shape. And like, I'm going to send Andrew pictures and he's going to be impressed. And he'll respond back with, oh, we're going to increase the cardio. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? So it's just a really good, like, that's a very positive to me because it tells me Andrew's not going to settle for anything less. And he holds me to a high standard and he knows the type of conditioning that we want to bring. And that's also another reason why I've stayed with him because, at the end of the day, like I said, I can't control my genetic potential, but what we can control is my conditioning. And you know what I mean? So me and Andrew have sort of proven on our track record to do that, so why would I switch? I've had people that have been like, oh, why don't you go to this coach? He'll make you into a freak or this and that. And I'm like, well, first of all, you don't know that. And second of all, it's like, I wouldn't really, I've always been a kind of guy that like, I feel like I have like integrity, loyalty, and I try to like keep that close to me. And I feel like in this industry, there's a lot of not that, it's like how many times you see a guy, oh yeah, I'm using, HD. It's the best product out there. 2 weeks later, oh yeah, I'm using Redcon 1. It's the best product out there. Wait a minute. I mean, these kids fall for it, but it's like, that doesn't really show me integrity, loyalty. I mean, I'm not saying like, if you've been with, there's obviously circumstances or whatever. And, some of these guys are getting paid a paycheck, but at the same time, it's like, do I really want to be that guy? It's like, oh yeah, this is like the new best coach. This is the new best supplement, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? I have this same close circle that I've been with, since, when I started pretty much or close to, and I take pride in that.
So talk to me a little bit about how your training is adjusted or changes maybe a little bit the closer you get to show day, Nate.
Yeah. So this is actually pretty interesting because I think some people might disagree with me here, which is fine. I think it's good to have disagreement. But honestly, I actually tend to. So the majority of people will say you got to train the same way that you got the muscle on to keep it on. Or it's like that. What do they say? It's like when, the person that got you to the dance or whatever, that whole thing. So pretty much people are saying like train heavy, hard, the same way all the way up to the show pretty much. Well, for me, I tend to back off a little bit about like, 3 weeks out. I still train hard, but I'll bring the volume down a little bit. Maybe bring out some of the intensifiers. Because for me, like I said, it was like a really important piece to keep my muscle nice and full. So I think there becomes a point of you can train a little too hard and then you end up going flat. So obviously, for myself, that was something that I looked at. So, I mean, for me, like say like 3 or 4 weeks out, my leg training, I wasn't going till failure. I was leaving like 2 or 3 reps in the tank, sort of chasing a pump, to be honest with you. And I know people hate that word, but necessarily not obliterating the muscle where it's not recovering for, 3 or 4 days because, let's say you're 3 or 4 weeks out and you just do a quad training, day, the same as you did when you're 12 weeks out, you're going to be sore for probably a whole week because you don't have the proper nutrients in you. You're also doing, most of us, I would say, are probably doing over an hour of cardio at that point. You know what I mean? So like my whole goal now at that point is A, keeping the muscle, and B, fat loss. You know what I mean? So those are sort of things that I take into consideration. So it's not to say I don't train hard, but yeah, probably not as hard as I did when I was 12 weeks out. And I would say that starts usually around like maybe 4, 5 weeks out. It's obviously going off of intuition of how I feel. Because like, let's be realistic. Like if you're 4 weeks out and like, I don't feel like you're going to like all of a sudden like lose your like legs if you back off the training a little bit, you know what I mean? And like, I use that like vaguely, like I said, it's like, I'm still training hard, but like there's a little bit more reps in reserve. Not quite as much volume. I might like take an exercise out, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think you should be in the gym for more than like an hour and 15 minutes, you know, when you're that close to a show. So stuff like that is to help preserve the muscle and fullness, in my opinion. Like I said, some people will disagree with me there because a lot of people sort of preach that, you know, hard, heavy training all the way till the show. And I've done that before in the past. So that's something I've said as well. But I think, you know, as the wiser and mature bodybuilder I've gotten, you know, it's because I think we get in this mindset of it's not okay to back off. You're not hardcore. You know what I mean? So I think you get in this headspace of, oh man, I'm not training balls out all the way till the show. Like, I'm a pussy or whatever, you know, or I'm not like hardcore, you know? So.
Got it. So talk to me a little bit, Nate, about what you do. Obviously the work's already done at this point, but you know, leading up to this point during your prep and everything, talk to me about recovery. Like, do you do chiropractic stuff? Do you get regular body work done? What is the recovery aspect of prep look like for you?
So this was actually another good piece. I'm glad you asked, because this year I really took it into full consideration. So I started seeing a physical therapist at about once a month, and then I also got deep tissue done every other week. So I think that helped a ton. So the personal trainer was doing sort of like active release therapy, Graston, dry needling, all that kind of stuff. And then I'd have the deep tissue person, you know what I mean, sort of get in there nice and deep with their hands. And that I had a good routine going with that for sure. So once a month, the PT would do all that, you know, body work. And then I'd have the, you know, deep tissue every other week. And then, yeah, that was pretty much it for that kind of aspect. And then, you know, just making sure my sleep is on point. You know, if I can get a nap in, I could, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff is definitely crucial in prep. I think a lot of people, sleep is like the number one, you know, prep, silent killer, I guess you might say, in prep, where, you know, a lot of people aren't really getting a sufficient amount of sleep, and then they're running into fat loss issues, and, you know, sort of what's going on. Like, my cardio is going up, my food's going down, but I'm not losing fat. You know, generally speaking, usually probably sleep is the culprit, or like you said, recovery. So it's really definitely getting to be in tune with your body. You know, so a coach is great, but the coach isn't going to be there to tell you everything that's going on with your body 100% of the time. So I think to be a good bodybuilder, you have to have some kind of intuition on your own too, to sort of say, okay, like, and that's where Andrew's good too, because he respects me and we've been together long enough where he knows I'm not just going to bullshit him. Like, I'll tell him, you know, like, okay, like, it's getting a little hard or whatever, you know what I mean? And I barely ever say that, but I'm just saying, like, you got to be okay to sort of let them know and give them that feedback, because they're not going to be able to do anything unless they have the feedback. And it's one of those things, like, you know, if you're a serious bodybuilder and you know you are, like, you know, you're not like bullshitting, like, and you're not coming to them every week where you're like, oh, I'm tired, I'm hungry. Well, yeah, no shit. Like, you got to sort of be able to sift through like the bullshit, because you're obviously going to be hungry and tired, whatever. But, you know, there gets to a certain point where you're like, okay, like, I definitely know, like, I need at least a day off or something, or cardio, or, you know.
For sure. 100%, man. So you're at nationals right now. Why don't you give us a little sneak peek behind the curtain in terms of when you got into Florida, and then talk to me about you said how many guys are actually competing in, like, in the super heavies and the heavyweight classes. Why don't you talk about that? Just talk about maybe the schedule, when you're planning on stepping on stage for prejudging and finals, and just touch on the details a little bit at nationals now, Nate, please.
For sure. So we actually got in yesterday, Thursday. Prejudging is on Saturday. So we flew in early Thursday. And I sort of did that on purpose. So my whole thought is, some people like to get down to these like really early, like say Monday, Tuesday, you know, set up camp, whatever. For me, I like being in my habitat as long as I can. You know, I got my 2 dogs. I got all my, you know, TV stations, whatever I need. Like, you know, it's just like, and the home gym you're in, like everything is, if I can keep that, you know, my habitat to me as many days as I can, I think I'm going to be more successful that way. You know, I think some people, you know, they want to get down here Monday, you know, it's exciting. Yeah. They check into a hotel and then you sit in a hotel and don't do shit for like 4 or 5 days. And like, you go stir crazy, you know what I mean? Like for small instances, you know, like we have a TV here and all it has is like basic cable, no Netflix, YouTube, that kind of stuff, Hulu, you know, so it's sort of like, oh, what am I going to watch freaking news all day? You know, so that's why, you know, we've only been down here for a couple of days. So, and not only that too, I find you train and you do your cardio better, you know, in your everyday environment. Whereas like if you come down here, you know, you go to the cool gyms, the Kissimmee and the Iron Religion, and you see everyone down there and you're trying to do your cardio and stay in the headset or stay in the mindset. But then you're running into everyone. Everyone's like, oh, what's going on? How you doing? Blah, 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 this and that. You know, so you're sort of out of your, you know, game face per se. So that's why I like to sort of fly down as much, as close to a show I can. So we flew down, you know, yesterday, got all situated and stuff like that. And then, yeah, I think, you know, this nationals is going to be pretty exciting, man. I mean, I think it's going to be one of the best that's, you know, for a few years at least. You know, heavyweights is crazy. I heard there's 44 guys in it, which is bonkers. You know, and then I hear, you know, you got Justin Shire, which is like, he's crazy. You got Carlos Thomas Jr., who's freaking nuts. You know what I mean? Jordan Janowitz, who's nuts, and he's looking like he might shock some people. And then you got a couple other like really good heavyweights, you know, Blake Corville, who's really good, Justin O'Donnell. I'm going to miss some and I'm going to feel like an asshole, but there's a lot of really good heavyweights. And then that new kid, that Fuad just signed, like BB Fit or something, who benches like 600 pounds for reps. You know, he's crazy too. So that class is going to be nuts. And then, you know, super heavyweights. I think there's probably going to be over 20 guys, probably like 22, 23, something, which is really good for supers. And then you got guys like Matt Berzicott and Jonathan Irizarry. You know, those 2 guys have been runner-up before. John Irizarry was runner-up to Sergio and Eddie Bracamanis in 2015 Nationals, which was a crazy Nationals too. You know, they had the 3-man call out there, which is really exciting. Yes, I'm a bodybuilding nerd too. And yes, I'm a fan. That was a really good Nationals. And then you got Matt Berzicott, who's been runner-up. I don't know if he was a teen national championship, but he was competing with Steve Kuklo at teen nationals. That's how long he's been at it. And he's been runner-up a few times. And then you got a guy, like a new guy on the scene, Chris Fine, who's like a little Branch Warren, who's a super. He's really good. You got Brandon Alexander, who's a taller guy, but he's shredded. You know what I mean? So there's some really good supers too. And I'm going to forget someone again and someone's going to be mad. Oh, Brian Troy or whatever, Hunter's old partner. He's doing it. You know, he got 3rd at North Americans. You know, so you got 4 guys that have been top 5 in the supers at national shows, including myself. So yeah, man, I mean, I don't know. This is my favorite show of the year, honestly, for, you know, amateurs. Like USA's is cool and North Americans is cool, but something about nationals, the end of the year, nothing else is going on. It's down in Florida. Like I've done the show. So I think this is my 4th time doing the show. And yeah, this is definitely my favorite show to do. I mean, like I said, Florida, end of the year. I feel like there's a lot of hype behind it. There's always like good media coverage. Like they put on a really good show. Like this year, I know they have a huge expo set up. And there's like a lot of these pros that are going to be there that they keep posting about, you know, like that's cool, man. Like, because to be honest, when I started coming into bodybuilding, like I was watching these national guys, like the position I'm in now, and those are the guys I looked up to. Like I remember John Ward and like those guys, you know, they're chasing their pro cards, and, you know, muscular development, RX muscle. Those guys were in the trenches with the amateur guys, covering them. Like the hype was like unreal. It was so much fun. Like it's so exciting. And then unfortunately, you know, like the social media thing, and, you know, I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think the national level was quite as maybe competitive because people were turning pro too much. You came out with classic physique. all that kind of stuff. So it sort of became a little watered down, but it is still obviously very hard to turn pro, especially as a super heavyweight, because look at like look at George Janowitz, you know what I mean? He's been a runner up a few times. I mean, look at Johnny Azari, he's been runner up a few times. And you look at those guys and they look like pros, if you ask a normal person, they'd be like, oh yeah, that guy's a pro, So it's definitely not easy to turn pro. It's easier in some classes, I will say, yeah. But yeah, so I'm just saying nationals has like, they still have a little bit of that vibe of like, okay, it's a big deal. There's a lot of coverage, because the first time I did Junior USA was my first national show. It's not a pro qualifier for bodybuilding, but I went down there, was like no media coverage. And I'm like, what the hell? And I won my class. And it was like, I don't know. It was just like disappointing because, like 10 years ago, Palumbo, David Bay, all these guys would be doing wrap-ups, pre-show interviews. Like the first nationals I did in 2016, David Bay interviewed me like at weigh-ins, like, oh, how's everything going? You know what I mean? And like that whole thing, I love that, man. And, it's sort of not quite as, I think it might be coming back around, you know what I mean? But yeah, those were exciting times. And so national sort of still gives me that feel, I guess is what I'm saying.
100%, man. And as a, I don't compete obviously in the NPC, but I do compete. And just like you, I'm a huge bodybuilding fan and junkie. And I think about those like early 2000s to mid 2000s, where it was like muscular development. Like you said, they would have all these interviews in the trenches. And then when Dave Palumbo broke away and had RX, it was kind of like these battles. And it was just exciting, right, Nate? I think that's kind of the best way to put it. And so that's why I'm thankful, man. I'm able to get a few of these guys on before you step on stage, just to kind of, I'm on a very small level right now, but I have really big dreams in terms of maybe not copying what was done in the past, but man, just like giving you guys a platform, because like you said, like somebody like myself or somebody that's, young and up and coming in the NPC, like they're looking up to you. They're looking up to these guys that are getting second, getting third at these national shows. And we look up to the pros too, but it's like, hey, you have to be an amateur before you're a pro, right? So hopefully as I continue just to knock out some of these podcasts and build connections with you guys, we can do a little bit more of this in the future and bring some of that back. I want to be respectful of your time, man. We'll wrap it up here. Do you, why don't you talk to me about posing quickly? What does that look like for you in terms of practicing posing and how much you put into it leading into a show, Nate?
So usually in the morning so I sort of have a routine, like, especially like when I'm prepping is, I'll go I'll wake up first thing in the morning, do, one round of posing, take pictures, video. Then I'll go do my cardio, and then I'll come back from my cardio and do 2 more rounds of posing because I'm like a little bit more looser. It's hard sometimes because, obviously most coaches, they want their pictures fresh out of bed. There's less variables involved. But after cardio, I feel like you can get a little looser and open up a little better. So I like to do that then, and you're obviously on an empty stomach and stuff like that. And then so as we get close to the show, I was sending Andrew post workout, posing pretty much almost every day. So just to see how I look like with a pump in different lighting, that kind of stuff. So as a coach, I think, he has the right idea, because the more pictures and video you ask for, the more it's going to make someone pose, so it might be an underlying reasoning, obviously to see the pictures, but at the same time, you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, because now the competitor is posing more because of that. So I think any like up and coming coaches that's a good tool to use, is, and have them send video, not just pictures, so you can see the transitions, how are they breathing, etc. So yeah, I mean, posing is huge, because especially at the national level shows where, it's very competitive, you could be up there for 5 rounds. Last year, I know Bundy and John Withers, who were in the overall, like, I think they had him pose like 5 or 4 rounds. And they were gassed, you know what I mean? So it's one of those things, you don't want to you got everything you need, but then you start losing it on the posing and fading, so.
So I know you are on Instagram quite a bit, but in terms of how you kind of approach looking at other guys that you know you're going to be competing against and kind of all of that. Obviously, I know you're on Instagram. I know you see the other athletes and stuff. Do you just kind of keep the blinders on though, or are you kind of comparing maybe some of your pictures to their pictures? How do you approach that, Nate?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I definitely compare a little bit. I've gotten better. I feel like some guys lie though, and they're like, "Oh no, I don't really care what anyone else looks like." You know what I mean?
Do, yeah.
But I'll be realistic. You know, I do look at guys and I say, "Oh, can I beat that guy or whatever?" Like, "Oh, okay, he's a little weak in that area, or I'm a little better in this area." Yeah, it's human nature, and you know, you're being competitive, and I'm a realistic type of competitor. You know, it's like I said last year, I went up against Nick Walker, and like I knew, like honestly, I knew I was probably going to lose, but I also knew that if I gave 100%, that if Nick was maybe 85%, I could win. You know, not necessarily, but it was something that I believed. That's why the conditioning piece I always say is so important, because if I show up at my best 100% and there's someone that genetically is just more gifted than me and they're not at 100%, I know I can win. So I'm not going to like ease off the gas or not work as hard. Like if I know someone that's like crazy is coming into the show. So, I mean, yeah, it's hard, especially for younger guys when you're first getting ready for like the national level, because there are so many freaks and there are so many crazy pictures on Instagram, and like that might not always be true to face, you know, or there might be another guy that doesn't look quite as good on Instagram, but then you know, he looks much better on stage. He might look a lot bigger. Like a lot of people come up to me and they're like, "Oh, you're a lot bigger than I thought you were." Because like for me too, honestly, I post a lot of pictures that are usually in like straight on. The light is straight on. There's no like, it's not bounced off the mirror. Like I saw a picture of this guy who was a heavyweight in Canada, and he was like 215, and he took a picture and it was off a mirror from his gym partner from like 20 feet away. He looked like he was 255 shredded as a pro, and everyone's like losing their mind. And I'm like, you guys, like, do you not see what's going on here? And I like, the guy's a great guy and he like is a great competitor, but it's like, you have to be able to like decipher some of that. Like, and that's why I always try to like stay true to like some of my posts is like, I'll post my fasted pictures in the morning, you know, and all my poses, you know what I mean? Because like, I don't know, that's bodybuilding to me, you know what I mean? And, you know, some guys will be like, "Oh, well, either they're not going to post their pictures fasted, or they're going to have to give you a whole explanation of, well, I was fasted, I was flat, and, you know, I had no pump, and, you know, I didn't sleep very well the night before. Why are you posting the pictures then?" You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying though?
I love it, man. Is there, as you look back, I don't know if you've done a lot of reflection at this point in with this past prep, but is there something maybe that you learned, Nate, or maybe a takeaway from the last 16 weeks or so?
Oh man. I mean, it's going to sound sort of sappy, but honestly, like at the end of the day, when bodybuilding's over, you're still going to have your loved ones. And I've learned to have so much more appreciation for my girlfriend, and just be very thankful for what she's done, what she's given up to be a part of this process, which is when I was younger, I wouldn't like see it that way. And so I don't know, it's weird because, you know, in prep, so you're in a different state of being, like emotionally and maybe not emotionally, you know, sometimes you're very disconnected. But sometimes it sort of hits you like, wow, like, um, you know, she's just been really great this prep. I mean, all preps, but I mean, this time it was just sort of hit me. And also too, I made a post the other day, that really, you know, stuck to me. So I'm 35 years old. And I made a post or on my story just saying like, man, like I only have like 5 or 7 more years probably to be doing this. Like I need to soak this all in right now, because, you know, when I'm 45, I'm going to be looking at this time as my prime. And in this moment, when I'm at nationals in Orlando, like that's the shit I'm gonna look back on and be like, "Oh man, I missed that shit." You know what I mean? So you really got to try to soak that in, live in the moment. It's easier said than done, obviously. But sometimes just try to take a deep breath, you know, scan the situation, assess, and be like, okay, I need to be like, I'm very grateful for this and this and this. especially too, you hear a lot of older guys on podcasts these days, like Fuad and Guy, and they're sort of like reminiscing, and it sort of like makes it real for me. Cause I'm like, man, like I'm not that far, I guess, so it's one of those things where I don't know, I'm just trying to like soak it all in and then appreciate what bodybuilding has done for me, and how it makes me feel. And because I really love bodybuilding, man. Like, I don't know, anyone that knows me knows how much I love this stuff. So it's one of those things where when I have to put it down, or I'll still go to the gym obviously, but it's different when you compete, when you're competitive, like, and you're in prep and all that kind of stuff, and you're giving your all. And so I just try to like, soak it in and live in the moment. I guess that's what this prep has sort of taught me. Yeah.
Cool, man. Last question. Is there somebody that you have competed against in the past that is going to be competing this weekend that you're looking forward to going up against and dueling with them again?
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, it's funny because usually I do have like a lot of the similar people. So I've competed against Vinny Machenzo a bunch of times. I competed against Brent Swanson a bunch of times, Douglas Frucci a bunch of times, and two of them are pro now, and Vinny's not competing. But guys that I guess I competed against Matt Berzicott in 2018 USA's, but I wasn't really that good then. But two guys, I mean, definitely that I'm looking forward to stand next to are Matt Berzicott and John Izzy. Just because like I said, John always had this, like, he left this impression on me because when he did that nationals and he was in a 3-man call out with Sergio, Eddie Broncomanis, like, honestly, I could have had him maybe even like in one of those spots. He was really good that year. And that was like, that top 3 was like crazy. It was almost like, man, just give him all 3 cards. You know what I mean? Like, and Matt, like I said, I have nothing but respect for Matt Berzicott. He's been doing this for so long and still doing it. Like I said, he's been competing since he's a teen. Like, and like those guys are the ones I respect because I'm in the similar situation, maybe not as long, but like I've been runner up a few times and, stuff like that. And, sometimes you get the new hot guy on the street or whatever, and every single person's talking about him, but no one's talking about this guy that, like a Matt or a John that's been doing it for this long and has been runner up a few times, and all of a sudden they forgot, about or whatever. So I definitely try to pay my respects to those kind of guys.
Love it, man. Nate, thank you so much, dude, for just taking a little time to chop it up. I know you're going to be on stage tomorrow. Any sponsors or anybody else that you kind of want to shout out, go for it.
Yeah, sure. So I have one sponsor, Legendary Labs. They're awesome. They're out of New Jersey. They're a smaller company, but they have really good, really quality products. Like I said, I feel like I have integrity and loyalty, and I'm not going to stand behind something that I don't back up. Like, one thing that really helped me out this prep is, they have these like sleep gummies that really helped a ton. And then obviously like they have like a good pump product where I was like, really depleted, and that kind of stuff sort of helped me. I'm not usually huge on the supplements, but I think when you're in prep and you don't have the same nutrients, the same kind of food intake, those supplements can really help, and energy levels and that kind of stuff. And then also my buddy, this is New England Muscle Media. He did a video the other day, and then some free posing, which is really badass. He's out of Massachusetts, and he does a lot of like filming and that kind of stuff. And he's done a couple stuff for me, and does really, really good work. Like, I don't know if anyone's seen that video in that room of me posing, but like it's very, what do you call it? High def or whatever.
For sure, man. All right, Nate, good luck tomorrow, dude. And I appreciate your time. I'm going to go ahead and just get this out right away. Okay.
Awesome, brother. I appreciate it.
Cool. Those of you who are tuning in to another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I just want to say thank you. I usually have a few things I ask of all of you. All I want you guys to do is just tune into nationals this weekend. Make sure you support Nate. Hopefully I'll have another guy or two on before Saturday. So just go, make sure you support all of these athletes, support the NPC Nationals, and take this episode, share it on your Instagram stories, tag Behind the Muscle, tag Nate, and let's get behind Nate, and let's wish him luck. Go on his Instagram and send him a DM, wish him luck. I appreciate all of you. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.